Good morning.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Have to do this. You need a new foundation.
For Jules, her computer's talking to her.
Yeah, she's doing ventriloquist types of thing.
Yeah.
So yes, it's interesting because here in Puerto Vallarta, the time changed on us. Like 1 month, the time went back and then it changed back again recently.
Like a month later?
Yes, it was the weirdest thing. I didn't realize that the time changes kind of happen other times in the year than I'm usually used to.
Oh,
were you aware of that? It's kind of interesting.
No, I wasn't aware of that. I thought they had the same, they changed time at the same time. So
I don't know.
That's why we do these forums. We learn things new every day.
I've been on. Go ahead, Jules.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, because like Australia's the same way, because we did daylight savings first, and then because I FaceTime with my mom at a set time every week, and then I was like, oh, let's get on the call. She's like, no, we just have the daylight savings, and now we're like an hour. I don't know, the hours change every few months. It feels like I'm like, okay, so now it's, we were hopping on the calls at 6 and now it's 8 o'clock for me when I hop on. So, and then we'll go back to 6 o'clock and then it changes. So yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah, I totally learned the hard way. So that's why I'm kind of cautious every time I'm expecting these forums to start, because I always have to double check my phone to make sure that I'm on the correct time. But we're moving back to Colorado on May 2nd and May 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to be back in the mountain this time again. So that's going to be an interesting
adjustment. Is that just a seasonal change, or you're going to be back in Puerto Vallarta in a couple months?
Well, I'm a snowbird. So yeah, so we are snowbirding back to the Colorado, and then the following November, we'll snowbird back down here. So yeah, it's a real thing. So people say, why do you snowbird? Well, because there's snow in Colorado right now. Yeah. But
right.
now it's starting to melt, I assume, right? So
yeah,
probably getting warmer.
It's still cold. Matter of fact.
Is it?
Yeah.
Are you at home? And
I'm in Denver right now. So
you're in Denver.
Yeah. So I just got back from Texas, which Texas was warm and cozy, and then I got to Colorado and it's like, oh, it's still cold here. So
yeah, Frio.
Yeah.
It's Frio.
Frio for sure.
Yeah. No, it's kind of interesting because I happen to be sitting in front of one of my closets. I have a lot of built-in closets full of summer clothes. And so I have Puerto Vallarta clothes and then I have Colorado clothes. So this time I don't have to pack my bags. I just leave them all here, It's easy. But I wear very different clothes in both settings. It's very fascinating. I don't know if I'm going to be able to understand how a pair of jeans feel again. Because I haven't wore a pair of jeans for 6 months, and so it's going to be very fascinating when I go back. But then again, it'll be spring. It's almost Easter.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's coming up this weekend, right?
It is, yeah, this weekend.
So apparently around here, the Mexican population, as well as many others, celebrate Easter big time. I mean, it's a huge holiday around here. And a lot of people take many days off, and it's just a massive fiesta. So.
Yes, I was just talking to Sandrine Bordeaux yesterday, and he's out of Dubai. And they're, of course, Ramadan is going around right now, and there's a celebration all across the world as far as different religions coming together right now.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's neat because we're a melting pot too. It's just really fascinating and exciting.
Yeah.
So, hi, Howard.
Hi there. Hi.
Just in time.
Just in time.
Yeah.
Open business.
The highlight of your week, right?
Yeah. So today I'm excited. We're going to be talking about the healthy employer and hearing all the new updates from our last discussion. I think we had the last discussion on a healthy employer was it pre-pandemic, Char?
Yes, I think we did an initial presentation on healthy employer right during when we first started these forums. So today I'd like to refer to some of those things because my thoughts and as a company owner has really transitioned even post, well, it is still pandemic period, I guess you could say. my mindset, even during that presentation, has even shifted in the last couple of years as well. So it's going to be kind of fascinating to take a reflection, because we've been doing these forums for I think it's 2 years. Is it more than 2 years now?
I think it's 2 years. I think it's about 2 years.
Yeah, because we started in March of 2020, right?
Wild.
And
The
when
time
we
flies.
started, we talked about the healthy employer even back then. So we talked about healthy employer of yesterday and today. So it's kind of fascinating to see how far we've come. But well, that's what I'll be talking about. It's kind of fascinating.
That's right.
Who knew that we were going to be facing all of the aspects of why we want to have a healthy employment model?
I know. Yeah, and we'll get into that. So I want to steal the thunder from our presentation, but there's a lot to talk about there. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. But so Howard, what is your weather like today?
Gorgeous. It's sunny and warm. It's can't wait to get outside.
So in New York, and how about Jules? How about your weather today in California?
Well, LA's great. I just got back from San Fran where I was freezing to death. It was like so windy. We wanted to like fly the drone and stuff, but it was just, I'm like, that drone is going to fall into the ocean. So we won't risk that. But
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Those drone videos are super neat.
I'm obsessed with, like, at first I was like, oh, like, but now when I see videos, I'm like, that's the drone. That's a drone video. Like, you start to spot it, but it's actually really cool when we travel with it. A lot of people are just like, what is that? Like, and when we show them, it's so cool. It's like aerial footage, and you just can't get that with, an iPhone. And
even television has changed. Like if you watch a Netflix show, I mean, everything, they have the drone fly in and fly into the location, and then there's the acting scene, and then they fly out. Well, you should know this. You're an actress.
No, it's interesting how it's evolved, like what they're using now. It's and the quality is amazing.
It is really cool. Hi, Samet. I think he is joining us.
Yep.
Hello.
Hey. All right. Well, I guess that's everybody. So I guess we can get started. I always know when the screen sharing happens, Sam's like, we're ready to go, guys. So let's do it. All right, everybody. Well, hello and welcome to the People Strategy Forum. And here at the People Strategy Forum, our goal really is to engage, energize, and elevate your employees and your company. So the way we do that here each and every week is we get together, we have an expert panel of hosts helping guide this conversation. And then to, we throw in a guest speaker into the mix to help us along. And we cover all types of topics relating to the workplace, employers, employees. And my name is Jules. So I'll be in the chat here today. If you have any questions, any comments, any feedback that you want to put in there, put it in the chat for us and we'll make sure we get those answered. We really try to keep it very fun and conversational, but we also really want to cater this conversation to you and your needs and what you might be experiencing in your workplace specifically. And we do stream this, not just on Zoom, but some other platforms as well. So if you happen to be coming to us from LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, still write your comments, questions. We want to hear from you and we will make sure we get back to you right after the session today. And we're also a podcast. So if you like to listen to your podcast while you're driving, while you're cleaning the house, you can just, plug your headphones in and listen to us via a podcast. So I'm going to introduce you to everybody else here because I'm not a one-man band. We have a lot of fabulous hosts here. So let's start off with Samit. Samit is an HR consultant and a people strategist, and he has years and years of experience helping companies redesign their HR practices. He also has helped with company mergers, and he's worked with some large organizations, including Deloitte. We also have Howard. Now, Howard works with Comp Team with Sam. He is a compensation advisor, strategic HR consultant, and his talent really is coming into organizations and helping them design and implement compensation programs that are specific to the organization's goals. So we also have Sam, and Sam is the founder of Comp Team. It's a company that helps organizations revitalize all their talent initiatives, their compensation programs. And he's been doing this for a long time, but he has a corporate background as well, an entrepreneurial spirit, and also created this forum for us. So he's the reason we get together every week. He's the reason we have the podcast. And our speaker today actually is one of our very own. I'm talking about Char Miller. So a lot of you would already be familiar with Char if you're one of our loyal listeners. And Char has she's had a very colorful career. She's gone from working in HR in the corporate world, but then eventually her entrepreneurial spirit kicked in and she formed a couple of businesses. She was a career coach. She had Rocky Mountain and Health Advocacy, and she is now the founder of Mountain and Sea Health Advocacy, as well as Mountain and Sea Career Strategy. So she's helping other expats do what she's doing, living her best life. So we're very excited to be to have her today to discuss everything to do with the healthy employer. So welcome, Char. And before you get started, I just want to let everyone know she has a free gift. We love free stuff around here. So if you stick around to the very end, she'll tell you what that free gift is. And then, just stick around for that till the very end. So if you, again, any questions, put them in the chat. I'm going to pass it on over to Char, and welcome, Char. You're a regular.
Well, thank you.
You know how
thank
this
you
all
so
works.
much. Hey, everybody. So I just wanted to bring up this slide real quick because this is actually a slide that we used a couple of years ago because I talked about the healthy employer before, like when we first kicked off the forums. And what's fascinating is, look at this, transformation of health in the workplace. Can we talk about transformation of health in the workplace today? I mean, after what we've gone through for the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't, it gives me chills to think about it because I couldn't even anticipate the transformation that we are going through. And what I love about my background, and I'm not bragging or anything, I've had ups, downs, and hard times and good times, and very much success in my companies. But, it's fascinating because I've applied some of the principles that I've talked about with my own company, and we've really thrived because of the way I have used transformation of health in the workplace with my company. And that's what I want to talk about today is, how can companies really embrace this and use positive psychology to really talk about transformation of health in the workplace. It is so much vital. And I will be using myself and my companies as an example, also comparing it with some of my past as a more traditional HR executive in healthcare and other industries. I've had a lot of different traditional healthcare and HR experience. So I do have two companies today that are exciting. And in addition to my other companies, I have one that's called Mountain and Sea Health Advocacy. And I have another one that says Mountain and Sea Career Strategy. And the reason why I say that is that I do currently live in Mexico and I also live in Colorado. So I, like many employers and employees, are becoming more and more global and working from all around the world. So I think that particular experience, you really don't know what that's like until you truly live it and really learn to lead from that space. And so I'd like to maybe share some of the learnings. I also know that my colleagues have many other opinions and questions about that as well, and experiences. So I'm sure, everybody on the panel today will interject. So if we can go to the next slide. So I just want to talk about, a few years ago, we talked about the health. This is a slide, that's right. This is something that, in my opinion, a few years ago, I really felt was really important. Now, there's a lot of words on this page. This is a very busy slide. But in my opinion, as an employer, we have a responsibility. And this is what I talked about from the Healthy Employer of yesterday. It's still vital. All of these aspects are still vital today. So don't just assume that these things are not relevant. Really think, for example, I'll just use the topic of hydration. We all know that our brains use water, right? You have to assure that your employees are hydrated. Because they say if you're dehydrated, your brain is not as efficient, right? So there's some actual real scientific biological analysis of those things.
Does coffee count, Char?
I'm gonna ask wine.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think
the employers with them.
Okay, well, I kind of wonder sometimes. I go, is that person drinking wine? But yeah, particularly now that everyone's on Zoom. But I would say I don't know what you think, Sumit, but I think, why don't you just send them a water bottle? Make sure a clear one. But yeah, I mean, these are just very practical things. I mean, and I don't think many employers really think about this. I mean, I know that when I was in healthcare, and many of my nurses were complaining that they barely had time to use the restroom or go get a cup of water, right? And well, guess what, leaders, we really need to assure that our employees get those basic essentials, you know, so.
Yeah, and one thing I'd add, Char, is I can't believe how important water is. I mean, so I have this app, I don't know if you can see it on the screen here, but so the interesting thing is that I track my water intake because, you know, just to try to be healthy, lose weight and all that kind of stuff. And well, getting your water in on a daily basis is a chore, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, and then so, but the one thing that I noticed is when, you know, to Howard's point of, as far as alcohol, man, the amount that takes away, you drink one glass and boom, I mean, you like lose a good third of your water for the day. And so it's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I think it's interesting, just it's a simple topic, right? But I think it's important to talk to your employees and say, are you getting enough water intake? That's not crossing any HR boundaries to ask a simple physiological question for your employees, particularly if they're working remotely, where water is kind of a challenging amenity to get, right?
Right.
But
providing the service so that they have it in their house if they work.
Hey, that's a great benefit, a water service. I mean, down here we have water service. We get the water jugs. I'm sure even in the mountains, Sam, as you would know, you get water delivery, right?
Sure.
Sam goes right to the mountain. He goes to the lake.
Yeah, I met a couple yesterday at the pool, and they said they lived in Alaska on an island. So they would literally hike 4 times a year to get artesian water off their island.
Oh wow!
And I was like, that's fascinating. But anyway, but to get back to some of these topics here. So again, real small language here, but I mean, all kinds of aspects. I think it's really important to open up the dialogues with your employees about some of those basic healthy aspects, you know, like nutrition and what is it about having a safe workplace. So for example, on safe workplace, obviously during the times that we've experienced, you know, I have had conversations about the mask, the safety protocols, the requirements to assure that my employees were safe. Some of them, I was really surprised. For example, in the last couple of years, we said, okay, well, let's keep masks at a time. The locations that we had, they didn't require masks for a time being. And so we made an announcement and said, do you want to wear your mask? And actually, most of my employees said, yes, I want to wear my mask because I'm dealing with the public. And so actually, we're very disappointed you're even making it, you know, optional. So anyway, so if you were to really analyze each of these aspects, I would say psychological, I think even from yesterday, what was happening. Go ahead.
Really quick, Char, just to kind of talk about the safe workplace. Another thing that happened in my history is that as we were hiring people from different locations around the globe, sometimes this safety of the workplace, even the safety of their home, is quite important. We had people that were, as they wanted a housing benefit or a housing allowance that allowed them to live in a gated community, things like that, so that they feel like their home is safe, so they can commute to work and so forth. So that we a lot of times, you know, we can take our safety for granted in our own location, that we don't have to worry about housing break-ins and so forth, but your employees might not be facing those same issues. So it's an important thing. As we know, when we're looking at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety is at the very bottom. So if people are worried about their safety, they're probably not operating at their full capacity at work, and they're thinking about other things. They're thinking about the safety of their families and so forth.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good point. And I know Sumit maybe has some thoughts on that as well. I will say one example of that is, if you recall, in Colorado, we've had just a slew, as well as California and other places, at least in the USA, as I say, we're all Americans, but in the USA, we had a lot of fires, right? So we had a lot of employees really impacted by the fear of a fire, even in small towns like Louisville in Colorado. I mean, even suburbia front range were worried about fire and fire protection. And I think I saw some, I think there were more students, but they were really disgruntled that the school was requiring them to go back to school right after their home was destroyed in a fire. And they were really very upset that there was absolutely zero compassion about that. And that is a real issue. Hey, Sumit, did you want to speak to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? What do you think about safety in the workplace?
I think that's one of the most fundamental aspects now, Char. The only thing is, of course, Maslow came up with the hierarchy back in the 60s, maybe. But I think the psychological safety angle is what needs to be added. So in terms of physical safety, there's a lot that's happening. There's also a fair bit that's not happening. But even the fire example that you mentioned, some of it could come under psychological safety, where as an employee, I'm more stressed about the safety of other people, or it's just heartbreaking to see other people losing a lot of lives and livelihoods, and non-human creatures as well, losing their lives and suffering due to the fire. So it can be traumatic, it can be stressful. Earlier, probably companies would just say, you're not being affected, right? Why do you care? But in a connected world, I mean, I think that would be one of the most insensitive things anyone could say. And that's where I'd say employers are responsible for physical and psychological safety, especially because psychological safety can only be felt, it can't really be seen in that sense.
Right. And that's why, and you'll see the word psychological is my second one on there, but I think even that has transformed even more so in the last couple of years. Having that awareness about your employees' psychological safety, being able to open up those dialogues with your employee and say, how psychologically safe are you feeling right now? Also, I think it's important that, you know, considering where your employee lives. So if your employees, as we know, we talk about this a lot in the forums, we talk about that hybrid model where employees work either remotely or they work in the office. So many things are transforming. Even if you work in an office, I mean, you know, trying to get to work, you know, let's think about the prices of gas. I mean, employees are stressed about, you know, the hour and a half commute that they have to do to get to work, but they can't even, you know, afford a gallon of gas, you know. So there's so many things happening in the world. I think an awareness of our leadership, really just considering that what's going through our employees' mind, that is very, very important. You know, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a very important thing to consider. And which goes to my next topic of emotional. Again, as an employer myself, I started really analyzing even my traditional talent management mindset, as I don't consider myself HR for my company because I hire HR professionals for my companies. I'm more the talent management strategist for my companies. But I certainly had conversations with my leaderships, particularly with our health advocacy company, about some of those aspects of emotional safety as well. So having the mindfulness to really think about where are your employees at from a mental status. Also, I had one employee whose daughter was dealing with, who was struggling through her college experience, because she had to do remote learning. Her daughter, her, you know, college-age daughter had to do remote learning. And the mother was extremely stressed because her daughter was emotionally doing horrible through having to, you know, do school from home and study from home and do the remote learning, which thus impacted the college-age daughter's ability to be prepared for real college and that transition in life. So even though my employee was not the one with the mental challenge, she was dealing with a family member that was, which really impacted her engagement and her ability. Luckily, she's a superstar. She's phenomenal, but it impacted, you know, her mindset, you know, about how she needed to focus on her daughter's well-being and then also her own well-being. And then also, I think that there are things that all of us, many of us are experiencing. Either our children are going through wellness challenges, but also our elderly parents are going through very much wellness challenges. So And many of us, at whatever age you are, you're always going to end up in that sandwich generation, as I say. So it's extremely critical to just acknowledge that many of your employees are very stressed on all ends of all, taking care of the psychological, the physical, the well-being of their, not only themselves, but their entire families.
Yeah, and that's a big issue right now, right, Char? I mean, we've of course all these things that are going on across the world are bringing on a lot of stress. There's a lot of things that employers are doing to kind of get ahead of this. I mean, we've all heard about having like the meditation or the Headspace app. A lot of employers are providing some of those resources. Right now, I'm working with a colleague of mine and going through the what is it called, the Positive Intelligence program, which is there was a book that was put out. I'm going to mess up the gentleman's name, Shiraz Shamain, and I don't know if I submitted. Have you read that, Positive Intelligence?
No, Sam, but looking it up right away.
I'm sorry?
Looking it up right away.
Yes, it's a pretty interesting program, but it starts with the book, and it's about a gentleman that had a lot of struggles early on in his life, and also in the workplace, he was found to be a little caustic, and then so he's been working on putting things together his entire career, and came out with this book, which I thought was pretty good. And he also has a program, and a lot of it is just around simple mindfulness. I mean, taking time during the day, as you would imagine. Some people do meditation, and this situation is just about taking a 2-minute break every few hours and just being a little bit more mindful. I thought it was a really good program that I'm currently in. So more to talk about that later. But
yeah, it's very fascinating. So I have to tell you, the beauty of my company is that we are health advocates, right? So initially, when we first started our company, we just offered a health type of product, so to speak. Not to get into the details of what products I offer, but we started moving into more of a health advocacy space because I realized with the dialogues that I was having with my employees that many of my employees were going through certain struggles. So for example, one of my employees, and she gave me permission to talk about this. So just from a HIPAA standpoint and a privacy standpoint, but she had MS and she just turned 26. So what happens at 26, right? We get off our employer or parents' insurance, right? And so at that point, I also had a contract health advocate that I wanted to offer health advocacy services with our company. So I decided to offer the health advocacy services for my employees with our contract employee, a true board certified health advocate, okay? And that's a person that can look at your bills, your medical bills, your health circumstances, sit with you with your doctor, really analyze your health without invading the privacy so that the employer doesn't really know about all those personal aspects. This employee was so grateful that we actually provided her a personal health advocate. And it turned out that even our health insurance was not quite sufficient for her personal medical needs. But my health advocate was actually able to help her find affordable, sufficient health insurance for her and really help her through that. And this employee was forever grateful for that. It was very enlightening because I thought I knew this slide says a healthy employer of yesterday, right? But I think it made it more real for me as a true business owner and really analyze the fact that in every single one of these topics here on this screen, that I need to pay attention and have awareness about these things and really think about my company talent management strategy and really analyze not just the basic health benefits, but really have an awareness and a psychologically open environment with my employees so that they feel comfortable and okay to talk about it. Because a lot of times employees don't want to tell their employer about their personal medical struggles or their personal family struggles, right? Because I think many employees don't feel safe enough if they do disclose these types of things to their employer that they may be terminated. I'm sorry to say it, but that's what that perception of many employees are. And in a safe workplace environment, psychologically, an employee is going to be more willing to share some of those personal struggles. medical appointments that they need to get to, struggles trying to get some medical bills covered, challenges taking care of their parents' healthcare needs, the need to take some additional vacation days, the flexibility in the workday to be able to make those phone calls to take care of their family and their personal well-being. Just the basics of giving them a break to be able to take care of those needs, right?
Yeah.
And so would you not agree that I think even now that need from our employees' perspective is even more intensified? I think from an awareness, do you agree?
You know, I think also COVID has really helped push to the forefront that, you know, employers need to consider the whole person, not just them during the work hours. You know, so they have to take into full account that these are people that have lives outside of work and issues and needs that, you know, not only will affect them personally, but also will affect their work output as well. So I think, you know, it's been evolving, but I think COVID has really kind of pushed it to the forefront right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I found that my company is really kind of a microcosm. I used us as kind of a beta test, a test environment from a view. I actually try to apply many of my talent management strategies to my own company as kind of a test to see how this could apply. And at one point we had 30 employees. So I really tested this philosophy. I realized for my particular organization that we wanted to keep our employees between 25 to 30 hours a week. To afford my employees the opportunity to take care of their families, their lives outside of work, and be able to pay them competitively. Thanks to Sam, he helped us with some compensation expertise, which was extremely vital in analyzing the way we compensated. And then also we had the ability to be very flexible with work schedules. I really worked hard with my director. I didn't want to be the main person my employees talked to. I wanted my director to be that person that my employees felt safe to talk to. And then what I did is I focused on my leaders to be able to do the same thing. And so these aspects is something that we integrated into our culture as an organization, and without crossing that particular boundary of getting into too much personal information.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, one thing that you just mentioned there, Char, is that the thing that you were offering your employees early on is the more the part-time experience and for full-time pay in a situation, which is becoming more of a buzzword lately. People are talking about the 4-day work week again, that they're starting to think about how to be more efficient. And part of the rationale for that is that people they're expecting their employees to still be as productive as a full work week, but only work 4 days. Now, their rationale for that is that people are spending a lot of time during the work week taking care of personal issues and such as health and billing and so forth like this. And so to the more that employers provide services like health advocacy that helps employees be more efficient at their work, then that'll take the pressure off of them, right?
Yes, I mean, it was very interesting to me to literally be able to apply this. I mean, I did have a bonus because our contract, her name's Elaine Oblenis, I'll just say her name, a health advocate. Hi, Elaine, she watches us a lot. But she offers this health advocacy service, and I would tell you that some of my employees simply didn't need it. You know, they're in their mid-20s. I'll never have a motorcycle accident. I'll never, have a disease kind of attitude. But then I had other employees that were in all age groups that were really dealing with these emotional, mental challenges in their life. And the fact that we cared, the fact that we offered, our motto is compassion, dignity, and respect always. To be able to openly talk about these things and, sometimes shed some tears over these things, and to be emotionally vulnerable and be able to talk to your employees about these aspects of what's challenging for them without crossing that professional boundary.
I think that's the tricky part.
Yes.
I was saying that's the real tricky part is managers may not be equipped or may not have the resources. And how far do you go in terms of, asking, questions that could be quite personal or about their psychological well-being, and then how do they deal with it? So you almost need to
Yeah.
take a step back and have, like you said, programs and resources available to them to make available to the employees.
Yeah, something that's out of the box, and that's as a people strategist. That's what I really find if anyone wants to talk to me and get a perspective, not only from a traditional work environment, but from a business ownership environment, of really exploring the very creative routes of what creating a healthy work environment for your employees is all about. And it really is a full analysis of your culture through the many different programs that we talk about, through cultural assessments or analysis of the organization, you know, and why our employees are disengaged or what have you, or not productive. But a lot of the topics on this particular screen may be some of the reasons around why we're not being extremely productive. So I think having that talent management strategist support you, or an internal strategist if you choose, to really have the capability, competency, and skill set to be able to have the ability to have that boundary and have those open and honest dialogues. I will give you one quick personal story. When I was 27, I was promoted to an HR manager. And here, this is going to get real personal. 1 week before I left, before Mother's Day, to go up to Washington State with my husband, surprise, I'm expecting. And I was promoted to HR manager for a grocery distribution company up in Washington State. And I was so fearful to tell my president that I was pregnant. And now imagine this. Now, this is going to be crazy. I am literally, I was afraid to tell my president and my company president that I was pregnant. And I'm sure I was so afraid to tell them, and I was trying to hide that particular fact. I happened to be in that age group. But imagine me in the back of a semi talking to truckers about their health benefits. And that's true. I was talking to truckers in the back of semis, talking about their health benefits. And they'd say, well, you need to talk to my wife. But anyway, but at some point I had to disclose that I was pregnant and expecting, and my president in that particular facility was horrible. I mean, he was so mad at me for doing such a, seriously, yeah. I mean, this was a long time ago, Sam. So yeah. You and I know we're kind of close to the same age. So, you know, but my daughter's 22 now. But he was very furious with me, which really affected me. And so I literally at that very moment in time, I stayed there for going on to 2 years. But I did decide that I was ready to leave, even though I was in charge of the talent strategy for that company in that location. And I was so afraid to tell him that I was resigning. I just sent him an email because I just said, I'm resigning on an email, which is totally unprofessional, but I didn't care. And then I moved back to Colorado. But my point is that we need to create that culture that our employees, even if they are hired on, you know, expecting, or with young children at home, or going through the paternity leaves, or whatever it is, that our employees feel safe, that they can openly talk to you about, you know, the things that need to be adjusted in the work environment to support them.
Right. I think that we know that, you know, of course, your story, Char, is still very relevant, because in the United States, we may have moved beyond that type of fear, and it may still be existing, but it's less and less common now, of course, because we're so employee focused, and that's been a trend. But there's still places around the world, and I imagine, Sumit, you could probably tell us some stories where you know, women health and the way that women are treated in the workplace are somewhat different than what we come to enjoy here in the U.S. What are your thoughts, Sumit?
That's an interesting one, Sam, and there are a couple of personal stories here as well. When my wife was, she was in the interview process for one of India's top companies for women, and she was asked a question point blank, saying, your age is X. Typically, we find women of around this age, they have children. Why don't you have children? And are you planning to have a kid sometime soon? Because, and they were very matter of fact about it. The hiring manager point blank said, because if you are, we don't think it makes sense to bring you on board right now. And and this is a multinational. It's a company which is headquartered somewhere in Europe. It's one of the largest tech companies in the world. So it's not like it's some 5 people operation working in the outback somewhere. And they claim to have some great practices for women and stuff like that. However, on the counter side, the company that she eventually did work with, they knew she was pregnant. They didn't bring it up till the second or the third round, where they said, we're really excited. And she works for the technology, the digital side. So they said this will be the first digital baby that we have in the team. So we're all looking forward to having you on board, and really, really excited. If you need any help apart from the job application, if you need any parenting advice, we're always available. So rest assured, we've got your back. And that was an amazingly positive experience. So there is a lot of conversation around being more inclusive towards women. There are companies that have just started out policies for menstrual leave as well. And they've been praised by some people. They've got a fair bit of backlash as well. But I think it's a great start for conversations like this to happen out in the open.
Yes,
right.
Good point. Well, the thing is family. I mean, in our regular lives, family is so important, and in these, we celebrate the birth of a new child or something like that. I mean, why should it be any different in a workplace environment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Sumit, we were talking last Monday. I think you were sharing. So I shared my story about my part-time work hours, and I really encourage that flexibility. And I also encourage my employees to maybe have a second job just for their financial safety and well-being. And I talked to my employees about that. And then you brought something to light to me that in your country, they don't allow an employee to work more than 2 jobs, right?
More than one job. So
more than one job.
A second job is pretty much a strict no-no for most employers. And we do have the code of conduct would typically have a dual employment policy, which states that technically, even if you were to participate in a family business, you would need prior permission.
Right. And that is very fascinating. I don't think at least many of my colleagues would have been aware of that from a global perspective, that there are different laws in different countries. So the question is, what does that have to do with healthy work environment? Again, it's about that emotional, psychological safety to be able to talk about some of those well-being. Some of our positions don't pay enough these days. So for example, my cost of gasoline. I mean, those basic essentials that our employees need to afford and pay for. And if they can't financially afford some of those basic well-being aspects, then they're not going to be as engaged. So it does really impact the health of your employees, definitely. But moving on a bit, I think there's a couple other topics on here that I wanted to bring to light in the professional aspect and personal aspect around really analyzing the toxicity of your workplace is also something to really take a deep dive in and analyze. Because even in my small company, we had a few toxic employees that were really affecting my employees' mindsets and well-beings, and I had to address it. And that's really hard when it's a senior leader of your organization that's creating a toxic work environment for your employees. Again, having that psychological safety to really take a deep dive and address that head on and really solve that toxicity in the workplace is so vital. And I think even more so today than it was in the past. I think that the political work environment still exists. And I think that even now, because many employees are so fearful of either losing their jobs or much more willing to maybe sabotage the success of other employees, is something to really still pay attention to. And I don't know if anyone has some thoughts about that, but I think that's also about creating a healthy work environment.
Yeah, I think you're totally right there. I mean, as managers, first of all, it's important to hire right, correct? I mean, bringing in the right people with the right mindsets into your organization that is going to be open to teaming and working well with others is critical. But of course, that means you need to have the right management at top, the right leadership that supports those behaviors as well. Many companies, they have one leader or somebody that can spoil the overall approach, and it can be very detrimental to the company. And so it's critical to ensure that this is not just an example for the overall employees overall, but leadership has to be an example here, right?
Yes, and I think that in my past experience, it was always considered one department, HR in general, is going to address the culture problem, so to speak. But now I think today we all need to take ownership. All of us own culture in this organization. All of us own being able to create a safe work environment where employees feel comfortable talking to their leader about the toxicity or potential issues that really stress them out before they resign. I think it needs to be part of their overall retention strategy, and creating that safe work environment for employees to be able to talk about it. So go ahead, Sam.
So Char, just one more question here. So how do we know if our work environment is healthy and there's no toxicity? What is the way that the companies can explore and determine the health of their company?
So I would say I was a beta test using the talent management method that we talk a lot about. We call it the TMA method, but I mean, it could be any type of method. But what I found, again, it covers, the TMA covers all aspects. Actually, if you want to go to the next slide, there's many topics we can go on and on about on this slide, but I think the next slide, I have HR with a heart, by the way. Most people know that. But if you go back to the prior slide with all the little pictures, the one prior to that, thank you. So when you say how, I really applied this particular methodology with my company. I applied this because when I hire my employees, we utilize the TMA method to open up that dialogue to show our employees that we really appreciate every employee's talents, drives, competencies, passions, and that we, even from an interview standpoint, we're able to talk about those types of topics. I actually have an example where it was actually a new hire that brought up, was, so to speak, the whistleblower. I would just call it that, in my personal company. I mean, it was shocking. But we had a new hire within the first 2 weeks, brought to our attention some behaviors that were completely out of line. And we had to do a full investigation, but she didn't fear retaliation. But she was comfortable talking about some of those things that she saw in our culture that were a very inappropriate behavior. She was comfortable because of her interview and her onboarding process and the training process that we were starting to implement with her because of the way we hired her on board. And then she felt comfortable because my leaders, also utilizing this particular methodology, were comfortable talking to this new hire about creating a safe environment to bring forward some of those issues. So we integrated this particular methodology into our organization at all aspects of all levels of the career transition. In my former life in HR, I had a diagram that I used about the life of a career within our company. When the talent strategy is beginning based upon the career strat or the company strategy, aligned with the hiring, the onboarding, the training, the succession management, career mobility, and even termination. And it was very linear. And if you recall, Sam, I think, and Sumit, I think you know what I'm talking about. We've seen those talent management models that have been kind of more of a linear aspect. And then we had certain departments that would handle each of those segments, right? I think the difference here, and that's why I love this diagram, I give credits to Andre Blom and the TMA company for developing this particular diagram, by the way, just to give credit where it came from. But the way that this particular model is designed is you show that it's more a holistic aspect. It's more of a universal aspect of our culture. So some of the other words you see: professional cohesion, social cohesion, developing. I think many employers don't even know where to begin to apply this very different psychological process into their organizations. And that's why I was able to apply it with my company, and I saw very positive outcomes. I mean, we have real numbers showing that when we applied these concepts to my company, that we went from a small baby startup company to a multi-million-dollar company. And I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, and I'm not really here to share those numbers. I could just tell you that because I'm one of the owners, I knew that it had a real positive outcome. And I also have leaders that could attest to the fact that when they tried this, as you see at the bottom, the talent-based leadership concept, to be able to open up these dialogues with their employees and be able to have those deep dive conversations, which also aligns with healthy employer strategy, that our employees were able to openly talk, even our new hires and the employees that were exiting were able to really talk about these changes in their life and how could we really support them. It also resulted in us changing many of our benefit programs and the way we handled safety in the workplace. Sam, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so so you used the constant feedback of the TMA model to really keep a pulse on your organization, to understand what they were looking for in the employee environment, the workplace, and to react to those needs, such as you mentioned, just the benefits programs. Through those dialogues, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, because of the dialogues and the openness. Now, again, it wasn't necessarily me that did all the dialogues, because I didn't want to be the one-man band. You know, I wanted my leaders to be the go-to person for my employees to go to and really have these dialogues. So, but what I had to do behind the scenes, and I didn't want to be in the limelight, but what I had to do behind the scenes is really talk with my leaders about how can we apply this tool through all aspects of the interview, the development, the training, and as well as maybe career mobility within my organization to be able to have those open dialogues. So another example is one of my employees loves compliance and loves all the laws and regulatory aspects. So he wanted to be a manager. Eventually he became a compliancy manager, right? And then he was very happy because it gave him a pay increase, some different options with his development. And he actually was very thrilled because he was like, wow, no other company would give me this opportunity to be able to explore these things. But it was because of this particular model and design that he was able to talk about interests that had nothing to do with his regular job. And then we could learn about those things and say, okay, how can we make your work experience more fulfilling to you, where you capitalize on those other talents, drives, and passions, and do what you absolutely love. And also, this gentleman was handicapped. He worked in a wheelchair, partially paralyzed, and he wouldn't mind me sharing that either. And we were able to accommodate his needs from a ADA standpoint and a disability standpoint. Be able to provide those accommodations to him and really open the arms and eyes of our senior leadership to be able to go meet him. And there, I guess there's regulatory agencies that help people with disabilities and how you do work accommodation in the work environment. So, you know, different things like hand pulls for the drawers and maybe changing our computer laptops so that they're more friendly for someone with hand disabilities. Again, I've had experience working with those work accommodations, working with the employee health departments and the wellness departments to be able to make those kinds of disability accommodations. But until you're really a business leader that have really applied those principles and really understand how it impacts your employees' psychological, emotional, and well-being standpoint, I don't think the traditional mindset in the past has really embraced what that needs to be today.
That's a great point. And so just as I want to point this out, because in a lot of the traditional HR models, of course, we've heard is HR business partners, right? And HR business partners would wear just multiple hats. I mean, diversity, inclusion, even compensation or performance management, and then they would employee relations and all these different things. And now we're starting to see that fragment a little bit. We're starting to see situations where there are, we have people where diversity inclusion is becoming its own specialty.
Yes.
Employee relations is its own specialty. Employee communications is its own specialty. And so I think that's really interesting that you're really highlighting the health advocacy right now of having that as specialized piece for those individuals, or for people or our employees to go to understand the complex environment of benefits and those special accommodations that companies can do, and bring awareness to our programs that we spend so much money on as owners of companies to provide these benefits for our employees. So I think this is an incredible time to bring this up, especially during today's stressful work.
Yeah, well, if someone wants to see a video of my health advocate speaking to this topic, you can go to mountainandseahealthadvocacy.com. It is, I have to admit, it is still in a development stage. Yeah, there's no real product or anything on it at this point. There's simply me interviewing Elaine about what health advocacy means. And, you know, it is really fascinating to really realize. Now, for example, when I was an HR business partner, I did have a benefits department, right? I did have that one person across the hallway sitting in the benefits department, and she was the regional benefits specialist for 11 hospitals. Okay, one human being for, I think at the time, 11,000 employees. And we had employees that have to call a 1-800 number to get their benefits questions answered. And all of us know what it's like to call the 1-800 number and to sit on hold for 45 minutes and not get a human being to call us back. I think all of us know what it's like to be able to be told you need to go out to the benefit handbook and to evaluate yourself which benefit option to choose. As an HR business partner, I would actually go out to my departments, and I also was overwhelmed. At one point, I had 3,000 employees in my division. Yes, I was the sole HR department for HR business partner for 3,000 employees. I was overwhelmed because I had so many questions in regards to health and benefits and health advocacy. And I had boundaries that I could not even talk to any of my employees about. I'm sorry, I can't get into the middle of understanding what's going on with your health benefits and your health conditions, because one, that's your privacy, and I'm really not the authorized person. You need to call the 1-800 number here and they will help you. Would the employer leader would come back and say, no, they can't help me. So I really think that idea of the 1-800 number really needs to be evaluated. And I do believe that it is everyone's responsibility to be able to open up the dialogues and give our employees the resources they need to be able to support their families, their well-being. And it's not just one HR benefits consultant that can do that alone.
Great.
So,
well, you know, I know that we've talked about a lot of things, but thank you, Char, for filling us in on this. So any of our listeners, if you have any questions, make sure you put those in the chat at this time. But I do wanted to point out our sponsor. We've been talking a lot about the TMA method during this chat today, but it is an excellent tool that can be used to improve communication with your employees. So you understand, like Char was mentioning today, what are our employees looking for? What is the workforce looking for in their experience with the company? You know, is there a shortfall with benefits? Is there a thing that we need to dig into in the performance management? The TMA process allows us to hear about our employees' drives and their talents and how they want to apply that to the workplace. So it's a way to keep that dialogue open. So if you'd like to learn more about the TMA method, please reach out to Char or myself, and we'd be happy to give you a demo.
Yeah, and even Submit and Howard may have some aspects of expertise as well in that, or your entire team, Sam, really, because I think you do have a team behind the scenes that have also been part of the TMA development and really working on the technology aspects of this tool. I think that many companies and HR departments are looking for solutions, as Submit can attest to, and in his experience with Deloitte, et cetera. Many HR people are feeling stagnated or stifled, and I have been there where my VP was constantly asking me for solutions, but wasn't really open to hearing those potential solutions. But now I feel I am more credible because I really have been a business owner. I think that now that I've really experienced it myself, and I really have been more in many hats, CFO, a CHRO, COO in my own company. And now I just say I'm a president. I'm just going to say that. I'll just give myself a promotion. I'm president.
That's right.
What I'm saying is that I think until you've really walked in those shoes, and as we say, and really understand what it's like to run a business with these challenges, and until you really know how to apply these types of concepts, it's really hard to speak to sometimes because it becomes more of a program or pragmatic or whatever word you want to use. So, but yeah, I really invite anyone on this call to set up some time. And it's not just me. I mean, I'd be happy moving to my free gift, I guess. I mean, at this point, I would be absolutely thrilled to give anyone a free 15 minutes just to open up the dialogue about my personal experiences and how I've applied these concepts, my HR with a heart philosophy, and how an HR person who has also grown up in the industry with very traditional mindset of what HR was, taking the SHRMs and all the basic policy processes. I know some of my colleagues on here have been through some of those types of trainings, but how are you really going to transform becoming a healthy employer from yesterday to today is really something it's something more important now more than ever. And I highly, highly recommend that employers today, as well as leaders and even employees that are struggling with this particular issue, can reach out to us. And we would be able to give you some different mindsets and solutions that perhaps your traditional HR department. One final thing, because we have a few more minutes, I want to mention, I talk about this HR with a heart because I, even as an HR person, felt like I did not have my own HR person, right? And I, in my personal career, felt like I had no one to go to. I was on my own little HR island that I was trying to, solve world hunger for all the leaders and the employees and myself. And my mindset about what HR with a heart is that where is the compassion, dignity, and respect of running HR with a heart? And so when I left my traditional corporate world and started my own companies, I decided I'm going to run my companies with heart. So that's really where that mindset came from. So, but yeah, it's been an exceptional journey. And I do want to thank Sam and team here because doing these forums every week has been very enlightening. I had the benefit of, what's Sam? Anybody can go out on all of the YouTubes, compteam.net, get access to many of the recordings, also kind of have a bird's eye view. Back to Jules, what is your flying helicopter thing?
Drone.
Your drone.
Yeah.
Your drone. Let's go back to our original discussion, have a drone's perspective of why we need to have healthy employment models in our companies, because many of us are so in the trees and in the jungles or by the beaches or the mountains or wherever we are that we don't have a bird's eye view of what's really happening in our organization. And I have to tell you, when I've really lived this thing and gone through all of these forums and listened to the exceptional expertise and talent that we've had on these forums, it has been extremely fascinating for me to really reflect on how I could be a better company and a better leader. So go ahead, check all of our resources out.
Yes,
and
thank you,
Char. I'm excited about this free gift. So I want to make sure that everyone can find, where would you like us to direct everyone for that? Where can they get that from?
Well, people could email me directly, but, since it's more around the TMA model, I think it'd be easiest just to email Sam. Okay. If you're okay with that, Sam, sure. At Compteam. So because I think your email is here, email support@compteam.net. I think that would be easiest because I do have multiple companies.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want your email to get lost in the mix. And I know, Sam, your team your admin team can really connect me with those individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. They're on it. They're so quick. So yeah, okay, we can send everyone to sam@compteam.net for that free gift. All right. Yeah, because I think Sam also knows perhaps there's a question that Sumit might be a little more relevant to than I might be, or Howard, or Wendy, or Heather. There's several other team members that might have some more different type of expertise and perspective than I do. And so all of us have a piece of that expertise, but I have more that healthy employer health advocacy perspective. So yeah, you can connect with us, and I think, but I will definitely give
and usually I talk so much, and my people that talk to me talk a lot. Those calls turn into way more than 15 minutes. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Char. So I do
you.
want to acknowledge our speaker for next week. We do have Greg Rocher that's going to join us and talk to us about his book, Networking for Introverts. Now, of course, he wrote the book pre-pandemic, and he's going to fill us in on how networking has changed through this journey for the past several years, and how to apply things going forward. So Greg Rocher is a coveted speaker, and so I'm looking forward to him joining us next week on the People Strategy Forum. All right. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone. Howard, do you have one thing?
No, just saying thank you.
All right.
He's getting ready.
Yes. So
yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and then we'll see you next week on the People Strategy Forum.
And stay hydrated.
Yes,
stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.